live on stage. The sound
of Orlando.
So, is they ready? The sound
of Orlando. You know? What is going on, party people? What is going on? We're back with another episode. Yo, my name is Rome, and you know what time it is. This is the Sound of Orlando show. I am Rome, like I said, and if you've been outside today in Florida, you may think you live up north. Why? Because it is 40 degrees outside. Thankfully, it's not 40 degrees in my house, so you know, I'm feeling pretty good about that, but I am wearing this as a tribute to anyone that's having to go through this nor'easter, this snowstorm, this madness that we call winter, because it's a cold winter, my people. It's a cold winter. You already know. Before we get started tonight, let me give shots out to our sponsors tonight. You know where to get masks. These masks are fashionable. 5 generations of fashion. TomSons.com. Go talk to my man George, straight out of Manhattan, right in the fashion district. He will hook you up with some masks that if you got to wear the mask, you are going to stand out amongst the crowd and you will feel good about it. So hit up my man TomSons.com. Our next sponsor of tonight is 5stargraphics.com. Need printing? Please check my man Jesse Jazz. He is legendary in this city with not only parties, but good business. Hit this man up, Jesse Jazz, at 5-Star Graphics if you need any graphic work done. Now, we are back, like I said. This show is about hip-hop culture and everything intertwined into it. So that means not only are we going to talk to MCs, not only are we going to talk to producers, DJs, but we're also going to talk to our comedians, man, because from the very beginning of hip-hop, comedians have been our way of laughing through this hip-hop story in a way that is, you know, most natural to us. And we're celebrating Black History Month. So we got to represent our people, our story, and our legends, man. And when I'm talking about this brother, I mean, what can I say? I mean, he has pretty much done so much in not only the hip hop culture, you know, being featured on Def Comedy Jam with Russell Simmons and so many of the legends, you know, the Martins, you know, the Dave Chappelle's. I mean, he's been a part of that particular legacy. And shout out to Russell Simmons for that kind of vibe. He's been on Showtime at the Apollo, man. You know, I mean, it's the list goes on. Caroline's, Broadway, you know, Caroline's on Broadway, Sunset Park, you know. It's just amazing. He's been in, you know, movies. This brother has, you name it, he's done it. And so I'm so honored right now to bring on this actor, comedian, and human being, and our brother, you know, representing Black History Month. I'm so honored to bring him on tonight, man, because we need that. We need to celebrate all of our heroes, all of our legends, and do it in a real way. So give it up one time for my brother from another mother, all the way up in Jersey right now. Give it up for talent, the comedian. Let's go.
What up, though?
What's going on, my brother, man?
I'm greeting you like I'm from Detroit. What up, though?
You already know. Shout out to the 313. Let's go.
Yes,
Shout
sir.
out.
The D all day, baby.
Yeah, bro. You already know, man. What is good up in Jersey, man? Like you guys are going through it, huh?
Blizzard, bro. Like,
oh my god.
You know, I knew it was coming though because we haven't had it like this since
20. Right?
Yeah, 2015.
Right. It's been skipping
so
a lot of years.
Yeah, 6 years of winners like this.
Right.
So now you knew it was coming, bro. You knew it was coming. I'm not mad. You know, it fell in a kind of opportune time. The only thing I didn't get to do was, you know, go home and see the dogs for 3 days. You know, just skip 3 days of that magic. But I'll get right back to it as soon as the Super Bowl's over.
I heard that, brother. You get the hell out of Dodge for a minute. Thank God for Tampa. Thank God for Tampa. Shit. I mean, it's you know, when I think of those blizzards and what that does, and it all comes down to the type of snow. It looks like y'all getting that wet snow.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know what's funny about the East Coast up here? When you buy the New York tri-state, which is everything really coming down from Boston all the way to, like, say, Delaware, like the snow varies. Sometimes we get it's technical words, but we never, you know, from the hood, we use words like all we know is snowball snow, or it's not snowball snow.
Right.
It's that fluffy. If it's that fluffy stuff, we like the first thing we want to know is it snowball snow?
Right.
Like a couple of people I want to put their lights out. You know.
Right.
So this right here, I haven't touched it because I've been locked in the hotel room, but you know, I'll find out by tomorrow. It should be snowball snow anyway. You know what I mean?
It was looking like that. It was looking like that wet snow for a minute, and I'm like, man, because I lived a little bit in Kansas City, about 12 years in Kansas City, and you know, we to your point, we would pray for that snowball, snowman, snow, because you could drive in that, you could walk in that, you could do anything in that, and you can use that snow as a weapon. But that wet snow, man, it's a problem.
Yeah, it's a whole different ballgame right there. That's that. You know, the good snow is the Home Alone snow. The snow they had in Home Alone, the movie Home Alone. Right. They was tearing Joe Pesci ass up. Nice.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, that snow, and you know, I guess because you guys haven't had the blizzards in a while, them roads had to really be fixed up nice, man, because every snow you knew the turnpike was gonna be, you know, jacked up. You know, the highway's gonna be jacked up. I mean, how are them highways up there right now?
Right now, surprisingly, because we're going on day 3 because it came down on Sunday. So Sunday overnight, Monday overnight. So now Tuesday during the day, they got kind of a handle on it. So by tomorrow, when I got to actually get up out of here and head to the airport, it's looking pretty damn good. You know what I mean? So I should be good by tomorrow.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, let's get into how talent became a comedian. What was one of the driving forces that brought you to comedy and to go along that route? I mean, like, you know, where did you kind of come up in? You know, what part of the world did you come up in, and what drove you to starting out in comedy?
Well, as a little kid, I kind of knew what it was going to be. I just didn't know the details of it. I had a big misconception in my head. Like, as a little kid, I knew for a fact that comedy was something that I wanted to do. But I thought, as a little kid, it looked to me like a hobby. It didn't look like it was a way people made a living. So in my mind, when I retired from whatever I was going to be doing, making a living, I was going to dive into comedy as a hobby, you know, and have fun because we were funny. We were, you know, people talk about the class clown. We were the everything clowns. Me and my boy, you know, AD, my little crew, we always were snappers and played the dozens, you know, but it wasn't just in the class. We was stupid in school. We were stupid in the courtyard. We were stupid in the lunchroom. We were stupid in our projects. We were stupid all around town, house party. Wherever we were, you knew, oh, heck go those dudes. You checking your clothes, making sure you look right, because you might get caught up in that. And so from early on, I knew that I would be there. I just didn't understand that it was a real job.
Okay, now I just want to stop you right there because when we're talking about those beginnings of comedy, and I remember those days as a kid. I mean, snapping, you could snap on somebody for hours, just hours, nonstop. And that was a different time because if you look at what's going on today, you can't even do that without it be considering some sort of bullying. How do you feel about? I just want to ask you, how do you feel about that? Knowing that you did that as well as myself, and others, and that was just a part of going to school. That was just a part of hanging out with your people, and that now it's frowned upon. What do you feel about that?
Well, before I answer that, is this a clean show or keep
it? Bro. You do what you got to do. We're gonna put it on radio, but we'll edit it out. So,
okay. Well, fuck that. Fuck all the people that think that. Here's the thing. It playing the dozens, as they call it. We call it snapping. Some people say bagging, Jones, and there's so many capping. There's so many things that mean the same thing.
Right.
It's not bullying, and what's happening is I understand the society is getting soft, but the one person left in society who can't get soft with it is actually the comedian.
Absolutely.
The whole point of a stand-up comedian is to go against the grain, challenge the market, challenge the powers that be, question everything. If you're not doing that, then you're not holding up your end of the bargain as what we call a comedian. A comedian, and that was just in the regular comedian days. Nowadays, the comedian has been thrusted into a category or categories that wasn't really for us, but now they made it for us. Now we are your politician, we are your preacher, we are your advocate, we are
your counselor, your bartender, you're everything.
Everything, bro. So your counselor, your therapist. Now that we're everything, we're more so now than ever. You can't conform just because people say, "Hey, this is what we're doing now." That would be a whack comedian. That would be somebody that's if once you make this thing like that, robotic like the rest of the world and the country, you might as well take comedy off the air altogether.
Right, and I love what you said because that is so important when you're talking about the idea of drawing outside the lines. Comedians, that's what they do. That's their whole purpose in life is while everyone else is drawing in the lines, the comedian is like, nah, fuck that. I'm drawing all outside these lines.
Exactly.
And I'm going to take a mirror to what you're saying this is normal, and I'm putting it up to you as a person. And but like I said, we used to crack. Shout out to my boy Rick. He was like cracking all people. Yeah, that's what we do. We crack, snap. We do this all day for hours. We take turns doing it, and we would leave. Everybody would be smiling, happy, laughing, and it was just a part of the psychology of toughening you up, but yet allowing yourself to laugh at yourself. And we're in that day now in which, we have a lot of people that easily come off the tongue and say, that's not funny. Like, you hear it all the time. That's not funny. Well, who made these people the arbiter of what is and what isn't funny?
Exactly.
Does that piss you off as a comedian when people feel like they can easily judge what comedy is?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, here's the thing, to be honest with you, is if you haven't walked in these shoes and haven't faced the adversities of a stand-up, which is a hell of a trailblazing ride up and down and potholes and mountains and valleys and Appalachian stuff. Like, if you haven't taken that, you're not going to understand it. And I get that too. But that's why when any person walks into a comedy club, they get a crash course into what real life is, because we put life under a microscope and we're constantly questioning everything. We're constantly saying, have you ever this? Why do people do this? And who said this? And who invented that? And because in everybody's everyday, somewhere in the back of your head, you ask that same question, you just probably didn't do it out loud. So now to hear somebody on a microphone or a bullhorn to say what the very thing you thought previously, the week before, the month before, out loud, you just was welcome into the real world.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Now let's go back to what you were talking about, in that you had your crew. You kind of felt like this is what you wanted to do. You just didn't see any way to, quote unquote, have a real job in it. like how, you know, when people say you need to get a real job, that ain't gonna make no money. You didn't see it yet. Talk about how you got into the idea of, okay, what if I do this and take it seriously? Then what? Talk about that transition from just your neighborhood to now going in front of strangers and taking those risks that way.
Well, what happened was I had this really good job. And I'm 22, 23 years old. I'm at this job for 4 or 5 years. I got a promotion. Now imagine being 23, 24 years old and you're already making $50,000, $60,000 a year. I'm in a good place. This is like my first career type job, and I'm already got a good jump start. I got a title. I got 401k. I got benefits. I got everything. And I'm dabbling in comedy again. Still not getting people who are doing this serious. This is a job. So when I jump into it and we're hitting spots, what we had to do back in the day. See, nowadays it's a good time because it's all set up for these comedians. But when we started here in New York, in the tri-state, we had to do our research and find where there were either open mics or live bands playing. Because we knew that if we go somewhere where there's a live band playing and say, hey, we're comedians, 9 times out of 10, they would be receptive to throw you on stage because the band takes breaks.
Right.
You know, open mic, forget about it. That's what it is. Open mic, get on stage, whatever. So we would sort these places out. And I remember it was an open mic place in a place called the Savoy on Jerome Avenue in the Bronx. And me and my little crew was like 3 or 4 of us that would travel everywhere, all of us trying to get our comedy thing on. And it was open mic and they let us all go up. And, you know, you only had about, if you're lucky, 5 to 7 minutes back then. But I had a good little 5, 7 minutes. It was on a Wednesday night. And when I got done, the owner of the place came over to me and said, oh, man, great job, man. Appreciate you. And when he went to dap me up, he put money in my hand, said, good looking, man, like that. And I was like, whoa. And here's the funny thing about this. This is the first time somebody gave me money for doing it. I'm about maybe 8, 9 months in the game or something. But the guy put money in. Now, mine was only $15.
Right.
But it's $15 that somebody gave me to do this. So I couldn't concentrate on the amount. It was the principle that grabbed me like, yo, somebody paid me to tell jokes. You know what I'm saying? So then I was like, wow. And I remember, you know, going to like not too long after that, Def Comedy Jam starts. And I remember going to taping and watching it go down and seeing people filling out their paperwork to get paid. And it goes all the way off like, this is a career. Like all this time you thought cats were doing it as a hobby, playing around. This is a career. So fast forward 6 months into the game, it started to take a toll on me where, because of the hours of getting up and catching 2 buses to get to my job and then going out at nightlife and doing comedy. Now I'm crossing the bridge. Now I'm going to Jersey. Now I'm going to Connecticut. Now I'm going, now I'm going a little distance. So now I'm getting less and less sleep. So it started kicking my ass to the point where I was like, yo, T, you got to make a decision. Like something got to give. So at this point, well, like I said, 6 months later, I was entrusted on hosting 3 rooms. It was a room in the city called Indigo Blues. They was paying me $125 to host a week. There was a room in Queens called Manhattan Proper. They was paying me $125 to host Tuesday nights every week. And then there was a room in Jersey. They were paying me to host another $125. So I'm almost at $400 a week. I'm just under $400 a week. And I'm doing that times 4 for a month. And I'm like, this is how much I'm bringing in that I know about that's consistent. That's not even counting if somebody calls and say, hey, come do this show for $100 or whatever. Just with that, I was like, you know what? I got to quit this job. If I'm gonna make a leap and really try to do it, I got to quit this job because something got to give. And I felt in my bones I was called to do it. So I was like, yo, God is calling me to do this. I'm making this amount. All I cared about, to be honest with you, my rent was $1,000. All I cared about is, I said, if I'm bringing in $1,000 a month, I can pay my rent. All the little things, the bills, the little things like little shit like food, they keep you alive. Little shit like that, I was like, all my little spare gigs, I'll get that together to keep the lights on and maybe get a little basic cable package and keep a cell phone and stuff like that. So I quit the job, bro. That's what made me dive into it seriously, full time.
And you hear that, people. Once again, you know, you're only as good as what you're willing to risk to be good. That belief in yourself is insane. Most people wouldn't dive in that, especially with security already in kind of in place. Most people do that out of desperation. You already had your situation straight, and yet you said, "Nah, bump that."
Yeah, I love
Just
a better situation. I love a guaranteed situation. You know what made it? The only thing that made it scary, it wouldn't have even mattered. But what made it a smidgen scary was my first son, Talent Jr. Talent was 4.5, 5 months in the belly. He was on his way. And that was the only thing that really I cared about. Like if his mom had any other type of situation or not working, I probably wouldn't have did it. Because, you know, here's this, I'm bringing a baby into the world. Right. You know, and I understood what that meant as far as healthcare and things like that. So the money part, Pampers and all that, I'm like, yo, I'm a hustle. I'm gonna get that. But the healthcare part, she was a nurse. So she had benefits in the hospital she worked in and all that. So I took all that in consideration. I was like, you know what? I gotta do it.
Right. And that's, and like I said, once again, we glaze over it a lot. We talk about, you know, oh, that's what you're supposed to do. You're a man, you know. But for a lot of people that don't realize how important that is, I'm just calling it what it is. That's courage. It's one thing to say, you know what, I might do this, be wishy-washy about your life. But once you make a decision like that, and you bet on yourself, that is one of the most courageous things you could ever do with your life, because it is so hard for other people to do that.
Absolutely. I mean, dude, if we can't bet on us, they can, you know the expression, always bet on black. If we can't bet on us,
what
you got? You can't bet on yourself, what could you bet on?
How were you inspired? What were some of the comedians that before you that kind of gave you the template or gave you the idea? What were some of your inspirations?
It was people coming up in the game. It was people that no matter what, and this was my driving force when I took comedy full-fledged serious. This is what I always remember. There were people that are funny people that no matter what made me laugh, if that makes sense. Because people can make a mistake and make you laugh. Right. That's not going to cut it. But those people who make you laugh no matter what are something special. So my thing is like the Carol Burnett's, the obviously Flyers. Carol Burnett, to this day, I always mention her when people say, oh, the top comedians and most all that stuff. She's one of those forgotten names in a lot of people's answers when it comes to who's the top five or who inspired you or whatever. She's one of those names that of all the accolades, and it's probably a generational thing, but I remember her just being immaculate with the timing and the consistency of laughter, like no matter what, you know what I mean? So when I watched the Carol Burnett, whether she was doing a funny monologue or whether it was sketches or whether it was stand-up, whatever, I was amazed, you know. And then, of course, you got the Richard Pryors, who I always say the most amazing thing about Richard Pryor was that he was super ahead of his time. Right. To do what he did during a time when people really didn't want to hear that shit. Like Richard Pryor was one of the early guys to put that mirror up to America, you know, black and white and race-wise and controversial, that he forced them to hear what they didn't want to hear at the time. It was too soon. and he still got it done. And he's still fathered he's still fathering generations of comedians.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? So on the female side, you got the Moms Mabley, you got the Carol Burnett's. On the male side, you got the Lenny Bruces, the Richard Pryors, the Red Foxes, the slapsticks and the Kirby's and the Flip Wilson. A lot of people sleep on Flip Wilson. That's another.
Oh man, another legendary show on NBC. And then you're talking about the Carol Burnett show, which, if I'm being 100, since I've started the show, I haven't heard anybody reference Carol Burnett. So you just brought me back to my childhood and watching the Carol Burnett show and the brilliance. I mean, I would literally die crying. I couldn't stop laughing from the beginning of the show all the way to the end. She was just an incredible. Her and Tim Conway.
And that's what I was about to say. It's like she was Vicki Lawrence. I was about to say that because she's like, when you look at people like her, right? And you can kind of say the same thing for like Keenen Ivory Wayans and those guys. They're the Magic Johnsons of what they do. It's like when you hear people talk about basketball, who's the GOAT, whatever. Pretty much right now, you're going to hear Jordan name, and you're going to hear, because it's generational, LeBron's name. Right. Every now and then, you're going to hear Kareem's name. But the name that gets lost in the sauce is Magic Johnson. Magic Johnson is my best player of all time for the simple fact that the stats don't show you one thing. A man that can make other men and women better.
Right.
That's a stat that don't show up in the record book.
Right.
And that's the most important stat. Without that stat, you don't get the championships you get. You don't get the accolades you get. You don't even get in that top tier conversation that you get. Carol Burnett was that.
Oh,
Flip
man.
Wilson was that.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Brilliant.
These are people who made everybody better.
Brilliant writers. Like, they knew how, to your point, to make others funny.
Yeah.
And, talk about the writing for you. When was the moment that it became like something that became, I wouldn't say easy for you, but became natural for you as to write your jokes? Do you write your jokes, and does it become easier over time?
First of all, there's different kind of comedians that some of them, like you said, write. I don't write. I tried to write in the beginning, and I got a quick course in that. I was going against the grain of, again, that's another reason I knew it was a calling, because when I was trying to write, it just never worked out. I'll turn around and read it. I could never reread it the way I intended to write it. I could never memorize it. I could never get on stage and do things verbatim. Like, you got people that are naturals. I work off 100% natural ability. And that means that if I was to sit here right now and write 5 things, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, T, get up there, say this, and then say goodnight. I couldn't do it.
Right.
I can get up there and make it laugh, but I couldn't do that.
I want to tie that into hip hop for a minute, because what you are describing are still what some of the greats have done, which is your Jay-Z's, your Biggies. They didn't write. It's in here. They just need to hear the beat. You just need to, I guess your point where you're saying, depending on the crowd, you know how to approach them. Depending on what you're doing, what environment you're in, it naturally comes to you. And those are, it's still writing. It's just, it never meets the paper.
Right. It's mental writing. It's mental right. And all that stuff. And it's like, here's the thing. When you think of a topic or something that you deem to be funny, like every day, all day, things happen, and we go to ourselves, that's funny. I gotta bring that up. I gotta talk about that. That's funny. When you're a natural, all you really need is the premise. All you really need is the topic, because you already have your POVs, you have your point of views, you have your opinions and all that stuff. And if you thought it was funny, then when you get to talking about it, it's pretty much 9 times out of 10 going to be funny. Now, you may time to time screw up the timing on said things. That can happen. But you'll know when you screw up the timing, like you'll say to yourself too, like, damn, I should have waited. I said that too fast, or I should have put this before that. And then the next time you do it, you'll get it right.
Right. And you just, once again, as I tie our laughter to hip hop, because laughing is hip hop. The idea that, and I'm paraphrasing, you literally just go up there and freestyle. And I think that's amazing, because for a lot of our great MCs that didn't write to paper, they made some of the most classic, albums ever. Your Snoop Dogg's. That Doggy Style album was weed and freestyle. That Chronic album, weed and freestyle. And it was amazing. Like, it sounded like he wrote all of that. And, and it didn't. He didn't. And your Biggies, your Jay-Z's going up,
right.
He'll hear a beat and then, start mumbling in his head. And that could be equivalent to what you're saying. You scope out what you need to scope out. Let me talk about this. And then boom, you make a whole entire meal, out of what's in the cupboard. That's a brilliant way of doing your thing. And it requires a heavy amount of confidence.
Well, comedy is hip. Here's the thing. We changed comedy hip hop. We changed that. Black comedians, the urban life did that, because in 1990, comedy had been done a certain way for a very long time.
Yes.
And it had almost zero association with hip hop. And here comes Def Comedy Jam.
Oh my God, talk about it, please.
And when Def Comedy Jam comes, as a matter of fact, I'm in the middle of my documentary, called it, it's just black comedy, but it's just comedy. Just crossing out the black, because it's no such thing as black comedy anymore. It was when we first got here, because it didn't exist. So anytime something doesn't exist and it pops on the scene, it is what it is. But it's evolved to more than that, where it took over what mainstream was, and it changed everybody's vision of comedy. People don't know this fact. Fun fact. In 1990, when Def Jam comes on the scene, and the first season, Def Jam catapults to the #1 comedy show in the world. Not the country, not the city, the world.
Right.
It becomes the #1 thing on HBO. HBO's #1 bankable thing they got, period. So what that did was a couple of things. The most significant thing in comedy that it did was it restructured the foundation and the landscape as we knew it. Meaning, it created a supply and demand that fucked up all the comedy clubs. They've been used to selling people this one thing for this certain price for so long. Then boom, Def Jam comes on. Everyone and their mother sees this thing late night, Friday nights. It's like, yo, I want to go to a live show like that. Where the fuck is that?
Right.
But we weren't in the comedy clubs yet as a whole. Right. So here's what happened. This introducing the black promoter picking up comedy and getting into the business of promoting comedy. They already been promoting clubs and parties and rap and music and all that, but they nobody touched comedy yet. And then, I mean, it was a few rooms, because that's where the idea came from. You had the Uptown Comedy Club in Harlem, you had a couple in Jersey, but it was very few and far between. When it hit the big screen and it became this big thing and #1 in the world, everyone and their mother wanted to go, where is that? So the promoters was like, hey, let's bring that over here. I'm bringing it to my lounges. I'm bringing it to my restaurants. I'm bringing it to my club. I'm bringing it to the theaters. I'm bringing it everywhere. Def Jam created a tour that became the longest running damn tour in the world.
Wow.
So when that changed, the second significant thing that happened was almost half of the comedy clubs in America had to close down.
Wow.
This is karma. Let me explain something to you. This is karma, because we weren't in the clubs like that. They wasn't booking us. They wouldn't let the black people in the clubs like that. They wasn't booking black comedians. The theory was if they had one comedian and you showed up, hey, can I get 10 minutes? We already got the black guy for the night.
Right.
That's how that went. Everywhere you went, New York City included. So when this big boom came, I call it the big black boom. When it came, everyone wanted to see that and not this. So you were still selling this, not paying attention, and half of those clubs had to close because nobody was going to them. They was going to the lounges and the speakeasies and the clubs to see comedy because that was that funky shit. That was that hip hop. When you look at Def Jam is hip hop. It was brought to you by a hip hop mogul. It was Russell Simmons presents Def Comedy Jam. So you had Kid Capri right there on the set. Everybody came out to a Def Jam beat. Everybody came out with that hip hop swag. Every hip hop clothing artist and marketeer was backstage trying to get you to wear their shit from Walker Wear to Cross Colors to Carl Kanai, Christian King, D-Lo, Shabazz Brothers. Everything black that was coming out, those people, FUBU. Everybody's trying to get that shit seen on TV because here's this production. For the first time in history, I can get my clothes on TV.
Right.
Now there's a catch-22. You're wearing the hot shit, but as soon as you say goodnight and go backstage, they're waiting to take the shit back because you're wearing samples.
Talk about it, brother. Talk about it.
It's hot shit, but you're wearing samples. You're
right.
not in the store yet. This is how groundbreaking this was. People like look over the shit or either don't know the history what's going on behind the stage. So you see Martin come out with all the cross-color shit and everything, but with the exception of maybe a cross-color, all those other black guys, they wasn't in the store yet. So it was samples. They got your size, they gave it to you. And you really didn't have to have your size because we wore everything kind of baggy. But you wore the shit. You said, "Thank y'all. Good night." You go around the corner of the back. That motherfucker right into the dressing room. Like, good job. Give me that shit. I don't give a fuck if it was a hat, a hoodie, a jean suit, whatever, because they were still making it. And this was you up there thinking like this is my break. It's their break too.
Right.
Their break is on your back literally while you're getting your break. Like one joint I got on the beige jean 2-piece from Walker Wear. Shout out to my girl April Walker from Walker Wear. I had that on one joint. One joint I had on something else. I forget what it was. Everything you wore was groundbreaking, at least in the beginning. Right. Once it got going, then of course had come the lawyers, had come all the shit like you can't do this, you can't wear that. It's called product placement. So if people wasn't paying for product placement, you can't wear that. You got to do this. It's something simple, even like the music. Because it was Russell's, if you tried to go out there and do anything music that wasn't even an unowned beat or wasn't Def Jam owned, they would have to pay money to clear that. They wasn't about to pay no money to clear that. What Russell, which I look at now, I'm like, he's right. Like, why would I play all this music? I got a fucking catalog of all these artists from the Beastie Boys, the LL to the Fat Boys to Run DMC to da-da-da-da. Like he had everybody. So what do you need, man? I got beats.
Right.
My first year I was supposed, if you look at my first Def Jam appearance, I was supposed to take 1 year Pride, 1 season Pride. But because my funniest joke had music in it that they didn't want to clear, I didn't tape it off.
Wow. And we're doing that now. Yeah. I mean, social media is the blockade of all things music if it's not licensed. And a lot of people aren't getting the play, to your point. But what an incredible time to be alive during that Def Jam comedy and what it did, to your point, for not only comedy, but for hip hop in general. I mean, so many greats came from that class, and that initial run with the Martin Lawrence hosting and what that did, and seeing our people there and all their splendor. You had people, in suits, you had people in the fresh dress. I mean, it was just such a great time. And we didn't know what we were going to see every week. We didn't know, because to your point, it was like all new. It was like it was like hip hop restarting again. It was like all these comedians with different styles. You had your own style. Dave had his own style. Martin had his own style. Like all these people, you know, have their own style. It was like listening to brand new rap albums every Friday night. Talk about how important what you felt like walking into that set for the first time and seeing all of these people, the Kid Capris, the Martins, and just see. Did you think it would be as culture changing as it was while it was happening? Or did you have to look back at it and be like, damn, that shit was dope?
I mean, you could obviously feel something was happening. To what extent, you'd be lying to say if somebody had their finger on the pulse 100%. You knew something was happening because it was the way they did it was the first time that anybody did it that way. Let me paint the picture for you. You're talking about 90, right? So in 1990, comics were really being broke in other venues like the Apollo. The Apollo had so much pull for so long.
Right.
And that's where comedians got their break. Either you got the super big break where you were the host like Steve Harvey, Sinbad, those guys, or you was the guest comedian on an episode that ripped the room, the theater, not the room, that ripped the theater, that if you ripped the Apollo, boom, it was over. That was actually my first break. Again, Def Jam first season I was supposed to take, I couldn't get on because of the music clearance. So what that immediately told me when I was told that was, T, you got to do your shit. You got to do funny shit. Make shit as funny as that music bit without music.
Right.
And by the time I got to do that in the next 6 months, I got called to do the Apollo. I did the Apollo. My little, whatever it was, 6-7 minutes on the Apollo, got a surprising standing ovation in a building where they boo motherfuckers for shits and giggles.
Right.
You know what I mean? Your existence is a reason to get booed. We owe you nothing.
Harlem for not taking no shit. Harlem don't take no shit. Let's go.
We used to have this joke. We used to say that people would be online at the Apollo warming up like boo 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 boo, like boo, getting ready because that's how it felt in that bitch. So if you can have a good set, fuck great. If you can have a good set in the Apollo, you're on. So my first TV break was the Apollo. I end up lucking up and getting a standing ovation. That tape right there made me undeniable to give me a job anywhere, any comic club, any promoter I sent it to, anywhere. Never did a person either not get back or not hire me for a gig when I had that tape. Number two, because it aired, everybody watched the Apollo back then. So when that shit aired, phones started ringing. Hey man, you gotta do Def Jam. You gotta do Comedy View. Blah 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 blah. I'm like, all right, whatever. I'm like, now they're calling all crazy, right? So what happens is you get the call. Of course, I'm gonna do Def Jam because I got snubbed, so I got this animosity on my back. It's like James Harden playing for the Brooklyn Nets, going to play against Houston. I want to smash teams.
Right, right.
So that's how I feel about it. So of course I'm going to accept that. Plus my boy Bob Sumner, John Bob Sumner, is the producer. Him and Tina Graham, who I'm already close to them, just on regular stand-up work. I work for Bob on Thursdays at the Peppermint Lounge in Jersey. So I have relationships with Tina and Bob, and they're the producers behind the scenes. So I couldn't say no anyway. So there starts the building blocks. Now, the funny thing about the game is it became very political very early. Like, well, people don't know these things behind the scenes, but it's like there was like the Def Jam comics with this unwritten versus the Comic View comics.
Right.
Then it was them versus the Bad Boys. It was this thing that if you was this alumni over here, you should be taking that over there. We're better than them. That's big point. You know what I mean? So it wasn't until these times where we kind of knew that, Russell had moved on or the powers that be wasn't going to take Def Jam and blah, blah, blah. So you start to move on and do all these other outlets because a comedian needs to be out there. But when Def Jam came on the scene, you got to understand how rough, rugged, and raw it was. Even though we had comic, you couldn't curse, you couldn't express yourself. You couldn't express yourself on the Apollo. All this stuff was regular, what we call regular television with censorship. Here comes Def Jam that's not only saying bring that black hip hop shit, but say it how you would say it on the block.
Right.
If you're on the block, I'm like, yo, what up? Where my bitches at? What's up, motherfucker? Hey, nigga. Like, they say,
right.
Do that. Talk like you talk. Because they knew that it was, I think that when you put something together, you have an aim and an angle you're going for. In this case, they were going for their audience. I don't think they had any idea they were going to fucking break down the other audiences. You were looking at that black audience, that urban audience, the hood, blah, 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 that watch HBO and all that is late night cussing. We like that in our movies and everything. But what happened is it crossed that barrier. And next thing you know, Becky and Karen and Brett and Bart are like everything else, the same way they like hip hop records. They're liking this shit, like, because, Quiet as Kept, they like our swag.
Right.
And this was another thing in front of them, like, oh, that shit is cool as fuck.
Right.
And it crossed the barrier and became the number. That's what I said. It wasn't the number one thing in the hood. It wasn't the number one thing in the nation, in your city. It was the number one thing in the world on television.
Right.
That's what I mean by the overall game changing that it was. And it was a game changer because all the shows that came behind it. Shaq Comedy All-Stars, Bad Boys, P. Diddy tried to replicate it. All of these things, that came after that were, to this day, we're still creating and shopping the Def Jam formula.
Right. And like you said, it would have been enough for Russell Simmons to bow out, which he eventually did out of Def Jam, and you would have said the man, between him and Rick Rubin, they were complete genius.
Yeah.
But he continues to reinvent himself, to your point, takes comedy and flips it on its head so that this new generation of comedians can actually, be visible all at once for the first time in like a real way, and not one black person be featured on Comedy Relief.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can't leave out guys behind the scene like, the agency Brillstein and Gray. You can't leave out Stan Lathan. That people Google Stan Lathan. Sanaa Latham's father, Stan Lathan, one of the best director, producer, executives ever in the game, to get back there and power. Now these people, and I say this with deep compassion, they change the game as you see it on stage. But behind the stage, I don't think they get enough credit for how they changed the game with powerful, mobile executive relationship with the artist, the bottom, the beginning level. And you, as an artist being picked to do your time on that team, you're actually in the equivalent in corporate America as an entry-level position.
Right.
And here's the difference in corporate America. The entry level, the guy that comes in the mailroom, he can't fucking talk to the CEO.
No.
He's not allowed to talk to the president, the COO, the vice president. Shit. He can't talk to certain supervisors.
Right.
He gets to talk to the motherfucker who brought him in, and that's it. You shut the fuck up. Don't step out your lane, blah, blah, blah. You're talking about thousands of entry-level comedians that would sit down and break bread and drink and eat and have real conversations with these people, and they're listening, like, and applying it. I went to Stan had me I'm in Stan's house eating dinner. I'm an entry level. I ain't doing shit. And he just want to sit down and congratulate me for the work I'm doing on the tour. And at the time, I had landed Sunset Park. And I mean, just sitting down as a black dude, talking to a black dude about the game. He didn't have to do that. This back in the day before navigation and GPS. So where I'm at in LA, living and staying, and where he at, night and day, and you got to look at the paper, the directions to his house. You get to this house, you're like, oh shit. You come on in, and he not sending the butler to get you. Ain't none of that shit. It's mano a mano, man on man. and we just sit down and he cooking and put the food down, and I'll never forget. And every time I seen it, and I just seen Stan a couple of years ago because we had to do Def Jam 25th anniversary, and on stage, they call everybody to the stage for the picture moment at the end. Everybody's up there from Chappelle to Steve Harvey to everybody, Mark Curry and all these guys, which, by the way, them two had beef, so it was dumb funny. But, and here's Stan again in my ear, like, what's up, man? I'm like, now, if you Google Stan Lathan, Google a network, this is a guy who's sitting down with the Elon Musk and all them, right. But he's never been that guy.
Right.
And I think if the best thing I've ever taken away from working with these gentlemen is that they were those dudes, and that I kept with me to this day. So when I deal with people, comedians underneath me, trying to get up and trying to get half the things done that I've got done in my tenure, I deal with them cool. And I deal with them level and keep it 100 because Russell always kept it 100. Kid Capri always kept it 100. Stan Lathan kept it 100. Tina Graham, Bob Sumner, Burstein, and everybody, Barry Katz. These are super producers. These are people in the regular world, in the real world, you don't get to chop it up with. Right. But they kept it 100.
Man, shout out to Kid Capri.
My dude.
And that whole movement. Because Kid Capri was so important for DJs being on Def Comedy Jam. The intro was just as important as the show. Just to see us as DJs on a big time show, being able to interact with the audience, the comedians brought Kid Capri in. I think that was really dope. And to your point, just because you got a lot of money, you should never forget how to be a human being. And what you're describing is what is so important right now in 2021. We're all watching this movie play out in real time. How to be a human being and how not to be a human being played out. And it's, what do you think? You, like you said, you've been at Sunset Park. You've been able to kind of cross different thresholds in your career. What do you see right now as we're living in this moment? And where do you find the comedy throughout all the tragedy and ignorance that is going on today?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said, out of all the things and no matter what level and accolades, we're humans. And what I see right now with the pandemic is it's the great humbler.
Right.
The first thing that was amazing is like, okay, a guy like me all of a sudden becomes more relevant than the bigger star because the bigger star can't find a big stage.
Right.
It's not allowed. So even when they shut them down, remember when the shutdown first happened and they slowly started creeping down, it was a numbers thing. So it was like you can't do nothing bigger than 500 people. So everybody that had a big concert coming was out of the business.
Right.
You was forced to be humble. And you was forced to, because here's the thing about a lot of these stars. They need this thing right here. They need for people to watch them at all times. They need to feel relevant. They need that. They've been so conditioned with that and souped themselves up, so to speak, to a level that regular shit drives them crazy.
Right. And I just want to build on what you said right there. I know I'm cutting you off in mid-sentence, but I think it's important that the people hear what you just said and how important that is. They want to be talked about as this object, right? And during a time in which comedians and the like are experts into talking to people as human beings, this can be an objectifying moment for the fantasy of it. But for a lot of people, a fantasy has been exposed for what it exactly is.
Facts.
None of that money means anything if you're sick and dead and alone in a hospital.
I've been saying that since the beginning of the shit. Like when they keep talking about, screw safety and open up and economy, I'm like, dude, what does the economy mean if I'm dead? What does any of this money mean if all of us are dead? It means nothing. I like to see these people that are disconnected. If you're disconnected and you need other people in a certain way, like you need to perform and you need to be this, you need to be talked about, whatever. You know what's driving those people crazy? Just the random shit that goes viral.
Right.
All the Karens, all the funny home videos and little, stuff that finds its viral life out there that gets 1 million and 10 million views, and you're sitting there and you're Migos or Cardi B and you ain't got shit pop. You like, ugh. You don't like that.
Right.
But this is the great reset. This is the great humbler. And what humble pie is the most efficient pie. And it's the most notable pie because it starts everything and it shows you for what it really is. And that's what the pandemic did, is humble pie. It showed you what everything is. So this is who you really are right now. I'm when it hit down in the quarantine and all that. Here's the thing. I found out that I'm really who I thought I was. How many people can say that though?
Talk about it, man.
I found out that I'm really who I said I was. I'm a guy with 5 pit bulls and who raised the 5 pit bulls and love my dogs at the house. I'm a homebody. I don't like a lot of company and pretty much no company. And I do this, that, and the third. And guess what? When it shut down, I do all the same shit. I am who I thought I was. But How many people can say that? Some people thought there was something, and then when you took it away from them or shut them down or regulated it, you lost your damn mind.
Right.
Because you ain't who you thought you were.
Right. And this go sit your ass down somewhere moment has been brought to you by talented comedian. For a lot of people, and I say this, I know our tongues are swords.
Right.
You have to watch what you say because you can slice your family, right? Like this is not what the tongue is to do, just willingly and just to slice people up. But with that said, this pandemic really showed the power of numbers. You mentioned economics, and those are the study of numbers and the idea of what numbers are. They're a science. And I was talking to this brother the other day, and he was, we were discussing about sciences and how, people are kind of moving on from religion and we're going into this science phase, and we need to deal with facts. And you hear this all the time. Everything's about facts.
Right.
Facts. Numbers.
This is true.
Also, what the pandemic has revealed is the cold, the death in those numbers, in those facts. Because the facts, the numbers, they're emotionless. They don't care. They don't care if it's your daughter. They don't care if it's your friend. They don't care if it's your family. The numbers don't have a side. And, when you're dealing with, like you said, humility, love, empathy, caring, wanting to be enlightened, numbers don't necessarily do that. Science doesn't necessarily do that. It only gives you answers, and answers are cold-blooded because they're there to inform, and that's it. And we're dealing with a lot of information right now that is cold-blooded. It doesn't have a side. It's just what it is. Almost 500,000 people are dead. That's just what it is. Don't matter if it's your family. Don't matter. That's just what it is. And so a lot of people are realizing that. Yeah, to your point, all this money that was available and and going everywhere, and people were just kind of living it up, and we were starting to see how the lifestyle was everything it should be. And if you're not in that bracket, you're a loser. God told the whole entire world, sit your ass down somewhere.
Right.
And we did.
That's real. That's real.
And I think that was for those that can extract something out of that revelation or that idea. Hey man, I lost some family members. I'm pretty sure you might have known somebody or lost maybe some family members behind it. If you were able to extract everything but depression, maybe guilt, or maybe a sign of foolishness of what you were living prior to, I think you're in a blessed position right now, because for a lot of people that continued to do the numbing for them, if you will. It's numb. We were already numb prior to this. So there's going to be a lot of people being numb to everything that's going on, our political situation, the fact that we're still dealing with the Klan and they're calling themselves different names as if we're stupid, and it's the Klan, and we're still dealing with a lot of the stuff we were dealing with in the 60s. I'm saying all that to say, how do you navigate through that as a comedian, and how do you feel moving into 2021 is some of your best strategies, if you could talk about that without revealing everything?
Well, I could tell you right off the bat, as a man, it's harder dealing with it than it is as a comic. As a comic, that's like opening up a comedian supermarket,
Right.
Of this stuff, because, you want stuff to talk about. Like go back to what you're saying in the beginning, you're talking about writing. The world is writing it for me, so as a comic, it's a smorgasbord. I'm happy. But as a man, you're troubled because you're a father, you got daughters, you got sons, and the climate is very tricky, and you want to make sure that they understand it and see it as you see it. So that's a little trickier. But going forward, 2021, I think that it's a great. I said this since the beginning. I said, I think that we should all take our time. This is the great reset. Take your time, look at everything. Now you have an excuse to sit your ass down and kind of categorize what you've been doing up to this point. What's been working, what ain't been working. Trimming the fat, so to speak, to get a lean piece of meat going forward. Everyone's got no excuse to come out the other side better than the way they got stuck and went in. Right. That's first of all. Second of all, I think it's a great opportune time to dive into those things and start building those things that you was either procrastinating or putting off further. Because that's what I did. Things that I said I was going to do at the end of the year, I just move them up to the beginning of the year and start getting them done, in March when we were on shutdown. We were shut down, but you still had your internet.
Right.
You were shut down, but you had your cell phone. Right. You were shut down, but you had your camera. You had your video thing. You could tape it. You could take pictures. You were shut down, but a lot of things were still. We were all connected virtually. Zoom, the stock flew out the roof. Something like Zoom, StreamYard, what we're on now. These are things that a lot of us wasn't even aware of. A couple of corporate people were, but the masses weren't until they had to have it. There was no other way to get those 20 people together because of the pandemic. Oh, they got Zoom. We could get 20 people together. You learned it.
Right. So, and you said something powerful right there, bro. Another go sit your ass down somewhere moment, sponsored by talented comedians who's just keeping it 100 for the people then. Yes, I'm guilty. I'm right there. If you would have told me I would be interviewing anybody, I would have looked at you and laughed. I'm a DJ. I've been on radio. That's what I do. Yep. But my thing was, if I'm going to do something, and I almost died. So death brings out a lot of the closeness to death always brings something out of people. Maybe it shook my brain a little bit, whatever. But I came out of it and I said, we need a place in which we could stop objectifying our people and actually humanize them and talk to them like a human being. So I know a lot of times when I'm booking the show, it sounds like, oh, it's just another guy who just wants me to come on his show. But they're pleasantly surprised when we actually just talk like we're at a bar somewhere and we're being human to one another. And I think that's more important right now as a unit, as a collective, as a hip hop culture, and as a people, that we start dealing with each other more like humans, if we can, if we're available, if we're free, if we're able to communicate. I think that is part of your reset. How can we look at each other as brother and sister, as human beings, throw out the luggage, throw out the trash, and let's just all come in with these new clothes, if you will, and start this next chapter together, because we're all in it together. You know?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things I've learned. The biggest thing, one of the biggest lessons I learned is that people need people. I don't care. I think it was kind of taken for granted, you know, that, oh yeah, people around people, whatever, we just moving along. When you took people away from people, I think that's what drove people crazy. That's what made people antsy. I mean, people was fighting over the littlest shit, you know, self-included. You know, when you open in my barbershop, man, fuck off. You know, right. my governor came on TV every day. I respect him for that. I love my governor Cuomo, but he would come on TV every day and he's saying a whole bunch of shit. And I'm locked at the TV for 2 hours, and they could just say what I want to hear. When are we opening the barbershops?
Right.
I'm Grizzly Adams in the house. Nigga, you seen everybody that first 3 months. You know what I mean? Puffy was Santa Claus. You know what I mean?
Looking crazy.
Was Santa Claus. And all the kids that was following P. Diddy was like, oh, this nigga's really old. Yeah. Yeah. I went to school with him. He's 51 too. Yep.
Right. It was looking crazy, man. I mean, and like 9/11, we all watched this play out in real time together. You don't get too many of those moments, you know. And we were all there together in one way or another. And like you said, thank God.
How great is this? How great is this though?
Oh, bro.
This became our new buddies. If it wasn't already your buddy, this became your buddy.
Shout out to all the liquor stores that came through despite.
Hey, who knew liquor was essential?
Who knew, brother? But it was, bro. Shout out to the
church, but open the liquor store.
Nah, man, you have riots on your hands, man. We
can't go to church. We can't go to church. The churches are closed, but the liquor store is open. You tell me what's up with America.
Right. I'm sorry, but sometimes Jesus drunk wine. I mean, dude, you know, in crazy times, you need your liquor store to be open.
First of all, that's debatable. If you go to Mexico, they say Jesus drunk tequila.
Hey, bro. Shout out to all my Patron, all that Tron. We love you too, man. But yeah, you know, for you as a comedian, you saying COVID didn't affect you in a negative way, which is a blessing. Do you feel like there will ever be a normal for entertainment? And
oh, hell yeah, yeah.
Will we come back?
Not only will it be a normal, I've been telling my comedy friends and colleagues that to be ready, because I did a couple of what I would like to consider experimental things over the last few months. And bruh, when the doors open, the doors are going to open. It's going to be a new rebirth for us. So what's going to happen is this thing I've been saying for over a decade, that there's a creaming coming. You know how they say cream rise to the top?
Absolutely.
Like, my business of comedy had became like the new rap business. Like, I remember when rap was oversaturated. I mean, like, oversaturated. Everybody had a demo. Comedy's become that now, and over the years. And it's been like that for a couple of decades. So I said to myself, because this will be in July will be year 30 for me. So after watching 3 decades, I'm like, you know what? A reckoning is going to come where it's going to be a weeding out, and the good comics, the cream's going to come to the top, and all this fluff and fat that's around is going to be chopped off. They're going to trim the fat. You're going to have this good cluster of real good entertainment and comedy. And the pandemic, to me, has done that inadvertently.
Right.
So
Right.
it's forced a cleansing of my line of work. And I think that the people, not the comics, but the people are going to flood back so crazy. It's going to be a great resurgence for us as doing this for a living, but it's going to be bad for the people who are not really that good.
You are listening to our Black History Month recipient of the night, my man Talent, the comedian. We're discussing what it is to be a human, what it is to be a comedian in this incredible time. I also want to lighten it up for my people there in Orlando who are listening. We got this thing out here that we call a quick mix. And this next segment is going to be a series of questions. You just need to answer them honestly, and we move on to the next question. Let's go to the quick mix.
That's my man throwing down.
Give it to them.
Hecklers. What's the craziest heckler you ever dealt with?
Craziest heckler, lady pulling out her titties, bringing up the titties up to the stage, and there's nothing else to say. That was crazy.
Oh man, craziest dozen joke you ever heard someone say?
Your father was born with a dog's butt, and they called him a bitch ass nigga.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! Craziest thing you've seen on tour?
Craziest thing I've seen on tour had to be, God bless the dead, the great Ricky Harris. I want to say in Pittsburgh or Oakland, I can't remember the city, but some thugs, some gangbangers got into it with him, heckling or whatever, and they're sitting in those balcony side seats, and the guy took his shirt off down to the wife beater and climbed over the balcony to jump down on stage and fight Ricky Harris.
Oh my god! Wow!
Crazy shit, yo.
Wow! Funniest thing you've ever seen a comedian wear on stage?
Every week that I work with Kool Bubba Ice, he wears a lot of shit. But probably Jack Shepard out of Columbus, Ohio. If you look at Def Jam and bring up Jack Shepard's set, he did a set and had the Prince pants on with the ass out.
Oh my god!
Yeah, that part.
I remember that.
That part.
Oh my god! Wow. Funniest joke you had in your stash, but maybe never told on stage?
Wow. For a long time, it was the freak joke that everybody is a freak, but there's different levels of freaktivity, and pushing the refrigerator down on a girl. That one right there took a long time to took a long time to get into the stage.
Oh hell no!
Because I'd be like, I'm like a freak, right? And girls be like, yeah, clapping. And I'm like, no, don't clap. I lay down, push the refrigerator.
Wow. Last question of the night. What would be the one set you wanted to do but couldn't do because there was other things involved? What is the one set that to you was everything but you had to miss the set?
That was the one that I told you about, with the was involved in music and couldn't get cleared, and I missed that season of Def Jam because it's a reenactment thing where I talk about dudes, trying to get some ass to get the girl home, and he hit his tape deck, and it was 3 pieces of songs in there that he's going through the motions. Hands down, it's so good I'm talking 30 years ago. It's so good. I'm contemplating bringing it back. That's how good it was. It never got aired on anything TV, but a guaranteed show-stopping thing. I'm gonna bring that bit back. I promise.
Okay, I shout out to my man Ricky Rick. What is the craziest place you ever performed at?
Wow, shit.
A lot of crazy out here.
There's a lot of crazy out here. One was a strip club, and one was this little ass boat called the Paddle Queen in New York that the mic cord was about this long. And the DJ, it was, first of all, it was too small to do the show. And then the mic cord is this for, and they wanted you to stand like next to the DJ booth is on your shoulder because he's handing you the mic and you got to do it. You couldn't make a motion to do a joke. So I just did like shout outs or whatever and gave the mic back. It was no way to do. I was going to play myself.
And that is our quick mix for this
That's
evening.
my man throwing down.
Give it to them.
Yes, sir. Man, I am so honored to have you on the show tonight. I think your career has been amazing.
Thank you, bro.
It should be inspiring to anybody else out there that is wanting to get into business. And, definitely for Black History Month, you represent what it is to go out there, take a chance on you. Love your story. And if you had one thing to tell Orlando or just the world in general, if you had one thing to tell them right now, what would that be and why?
First of all, shout out to Tight Mike out there in Orlando.
Let's go.
Played the improv with him several times, and it's always a blast. If I had one thing to tell everybody, man, is what I said. Get ready for the reckoning of comedy, man. It's coming, and sooner than you think. And look for a brand new everything. Look for a brand new energy. Look for people capturing this new climate. And definitely look for, if your favorite comedian is not that funny, look for him having another job somewhere else.
Part of this show, like I said, is going to be on 98.5 The Wire FM in Orlando. If you could send us a drop, I think you have my email address. Send us a drop. Sound of Orlando show with Rome. We would appreciate it. Because we want to put portions of this, let people know not only that, you've been down here enough. I mean, it's hard to miss Orlando, but believe it or not, a lot of people tend to fly over Orlando, go right to Tampa, like you about to do, no pun intended, or go to Miami. But with that said, man, like I said, bro, you're a blast. You're always welcome on the show, man, and you're always welcome to Orlando, bro. Please come check us out. We love what you're doing and continue to that Black excellence that we
Hey, man, I want to say super thank you for having me on the show. I want to say to everybody, I'm about to shout my social media because my merch game is crazy. I know a lot of people got merch and T-shirts and all that, but I take it all the way from the T-shirts, where it's just comedy, different logos, to the hoodies, to the glassware like shot glasses and beer mugs and coffee mugs and sippy cups and thermoses, all the way to lighters and flasks. I got everything. Masks, hats. You see, I got my comedy hat on now. Hit me up on Instagram, Talent the Comedian with a DA. Talent the Comedian. On Twitter, I'm at It's Just Comedy, one word. And on Facebook, NY King Talent. Follow your boy.
Yeah, man. Please go check out the brother. We all need some laughs. The man God just said, here, let there be laughter, and he was in that damn party. That's just what that is. Thank God for that, because we all need some ways to laugh and get our minds off what is going on in a lot of different ways of what's going on in the world right now. But shouts out to you, bro. Thank you for coming on the show,
baby. I'll see you soon. I'm coming there soon. I'll be there soon.
Yes, sir, man. Like I said, get that drop to me ASAP. And bro, give it up one time for my brother, Talent, the Comedian, man. Let's go. Yes.
Let's go, baby.
Yes. Oh man, so happy to have my brother on tonight. You know how we do. This is the Sound of Orlando show with your boy Rome. Shouts out to everybody that was on the check-in tonight. Love your support. We're talking to each other as human beings, man. This is what this new year is about, man. And it is Black History Month. So we're talking to our kings and our queens, man. And the rest of this week is going to be completely incredible. Looking forward to it. Like I said, man, if you got love in your heart, man, it's a beautiful thing. Shouts out to you. Shouts out to all of you, man. Shouts out to everybody that tunes in every night, regardless to what. This is the Sound of Orlando show. Love you guys. I will see you tomorrow night. You already know. Let's go.
Live on stage, the Sound
Orlando!
show. Is they ready? The Sound